presented her work in the economics of rare disease at the European Parliament. She sits on the expert judges panel for the MassChallenge and scientific advisory panels. So she's really cool and knows a lot of stuff. How about that? She's really cool and knows a lot of stuff. So she's going to share some of her stuff, her knowledge, and her coolness with us today. So without further ado, Carina, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here with you. And in a way, I suppose we should say thanks to COVID that our world has shrunk, that we can unite through Zoom, and that we can share experiences and anecdotes and meet other people that we would not meet in our everyday lives. I'm going to start with a little disclaimer, and just to remind everybody that I'm not a professional voice coach. But I've spent the last 15 years intently studying the voice, how people use their voices as a way of really engaging with their audiences. I'm sure that many of you have somebody famous whose voice really strokes your ears, a voice that doesn't matter what they're saying, even if they were reading a menu in Chinese, you would just love to listen to their voices. And the truth is that we can all achieve that. Every single one of us can enhance the message that we want people to hear purely through our voices. And why does this? Okay. As Alfred Wolfson, very famous guy, said, he studied the voice intently for many years, and he said the voice is the muscle of the soul. And when you think of that, then you know that by using that muscle, the voice, we can reach out to people. Categorically, the most powerful tool we have. You could have the most incredible content, but if it is delivered in a dull, monotonous voice that people can't hear, they won't understand the intentions you have. And I'm not only talking about speaking in public in terms of Toastmasters or delivering speeches. I also mean, in fact, that is the most important part, is in our professional lives. And I'll give you some examples in a short while. Remember that the voice supports the message. For example, you can't say, I'm really excited about something without being excited. You have to have the voice meet the message. Because if you said, I'm excited about our sales results, it really doesn't sound convincing. Support what you want to say with the use of the voice. And an important feature to remember is that your voice is your trademark. And this relates a little bit to all our different accents. I've noticed that when people talk to me naturally, they have a particular accent. But the minute they get on stage or when they're nervous and they're presenting to colleagues, they adopt a completely different voice, and it's not authentic. The voice that you use is yours. It is your trademark. Embrace it, use it with pride, and just use the variety and the way to inflict the voice so that you enhance the message that you're sharing with your audience, if it's public speaking, or with your colleagues at work. Now, I always remind people, what is the purpose? What do you want your audience to feel, to hear, and to think? And your content, as I said, is part of it. But if your voice doesn't match the content and your voice isn't expressive, your audience will not understand fully what you're saying. At the same time as you're talking with the voice, you need to align your body and the body language, or if it's in a meeting, you're not going to suddenly stand up and act, but you need to align that anyway with what you're saying. If you imagine being in a meeting and you see somebody sitting with their crossed arms and they speak, the body language is not aligned to what they're saying. If they want their colleagues to understand them fully, they need to use, even if it's just the arms or the position of the head or looking at people in a particular way so that they know they're included, it has to align with the content of what is being said. Now, I always focus on the 4 Ps. The first one being pace, the speed at which we speak. If you speak very, very quickly, it can indicate one of 2 things. Either that you're very nervous and you just want to get through doing what you're presenting, or that you're very excited. And we use these, and it's an important tool, but we use it at different times. The contrast, of course, is going very slowly. Now, if I give you an example, if I was in a meeting with colleagues, or in my case, my meetings are with clients mostly, if I'm speaking very fast, I know that they will not be able to follow the material I'm presenting to them because it's all about economics and the scientific background or science related to economics. And that's going to fall flat for me and for them. The only time I would race up or increase the speed of speaking is if I have great news, because then they know, oh, she's going to say something important, and then they follow it, and then I will slow down and repeat it. And an example of this is where I was presenting some clinical trial results, and the results were brilliant. And it started by saying, ladies and gentlemen, I have some fantastic news. So by speaking very quickly that way, and by saying fantastic news and doing it with enthusiasm, my audience knew something good was to come. But imagine if I had said, ladies and gentlemen, I have dreadful news. That would have indicated that I was incredibly nervous about delivering the bad news. And as I said, the contrast works as well. If you are talking very slowly, it's an indication that you have something important to say, perhaps not the greatest news in the world, and you want people to catch up to you. I'm going to report on our sales figures for the last 6 months. I've slowed it down because I want the people in the meeting to listen. I'm reporting on something crucial to the business, sales figures. Then you can speed it up again, and then when necessary, slow it down. The pace is crucial in delivering the message. It also helps to enhance emotions, and it gives the people you're speaking to signals of what they are supposed to feel and think. Because it's, as I said earlier, it's not just the content. We have to give them signals with our voices to make them think, oh, she's nervous, or this is fun, or this is important. Whoa, she's slowing down. Nobody actually thinks that way, but subconsciously, your recipients of your communication do think that way. The second P is the pitch. Now, women are highly responsible of going in the high pitch range. You know, those high voices that are terribly painful to listen to. They are usually a sign of nervousness, because when you listen to the same women speaking normally, they're lower down, they're in the mid-range. Interestingly enough, the opposite is quite true in men. When men are nervous, they tend to go down, and it's really difficult to understand them. And if you listen to different cultures, Russians and Spaniards, particularly the men, have a habit of speaking very low, and it's difficult for us to receive the information and to discern what they're saying. For women, I always say, bring it down. And for men, generally, I say, bring it up a little bit so that the pitch is discernible to us at all times of the person talking. It goes without saying that the power, which is the volume, is really important. And it's an important signal for the people to whom you're communicating. Now, quite a few senior executives in business complain that they feel at the end of the day that all they do is shout, that they talk very loudly. And the reason they find that is, A, they are talking very loudly, but it's because they haven't developed tools on how to speak to their staff in a different way so that their staff listens to them. And it sounds ironic, but by bringing the volume down, they would tend to command a lot more control of the people listening to them. And I've been in client boardroom meetings where I want to attract the attention of the people. They're talking amongst themselves. And the norm would be to say, oh, ladies and gentlemen, and to try and attract their attention. It doesn't work because it's like shouting at a child. It doesn't work. You've got to take the voice down, the volume down, and just say, ladies and gentlemen, then you wait. And invariably, one or two people will turn and look at the speaker, and then you can start talking, because that's when other people stop talking. If you talk very loudly, you're just part of the same noise. Volume control is crucial. And of course, in Toastmasters or in a public speaking environment, it's really important. One of the things to do, if you're not sure whether you talk too loudly or too softly, is to ask people around you. And there is an app that you can use. I can send the link for the app to Pantelis later, but it's really interesting to test yourself so that you know whether you're the kind that's always talking very loudly that people cover their ears, or whether you're the one that talks so softly that people are always leaning close in. And in fact, by judging people's body language, you will know whether you talk too loudly or too softly. Of course, on an online platform, it's difficult because we have to adjust the volume on our systems compared to when we're speaking in person. The final P is the famous pause. And it really means pause and keep quiet. It is incredibly effective, especially when you've delivered very bad news or very important news and you want your colleagues to remember what you said and to catch up to what you said. And once you've paused, I say 3 to 5 seconds, you can repeat that last little bit of information, because then that pause is a very powerful signal to the audience or to your colleagues that they need to have remembered what you said. It's a good one to use when you're delivering data. You want to explain to them, for example, the sales or something to do with a report. Say what you have to say, pause for 3 to 5 seconds, and then repeat it. Now, this is something that I take very seriously. It's the voice care, and I don't mean stroking it with honey. What I mean is preparing the voice in advance. And I'm going to give you a few tips on this. If you think of resonance, that's, some people call it the timbre of the voice. It's that vibration. And if you were to put your hand pressing on the voice and you made an O sound and you heard that was a little bit gravelly, that is the wrong sound. It's the wrong resonance of the voice. Similarly, if you were to pinch the top of the nose and make an E sound and it sounds nasal, then you need to modulate and make sure that you're neither gravelly nor nasal. Nasality is common in people who are nervous. They get high-pitched and then it's as if they're not breathing properly, and then they become nasal. Again, this is more common in women than in men. And then if you were to cover your lips softly and to make a ma sound, and it felt soft and the lips were just gently moving, then that is when you get what I call a mellow sound. And that is the sound that you want your voice to make. irrespective of whether you're talking quickly or slowly. It's that mellow sound, and you need to do it to feel it, and you can play around with it and you'll see what I mean. One of the other common factors is that a lot of people have tension in their necks, either because we sit for too many hours at the computer, produces tension, or because we don't talk for several hours and then we're suddenly required to talk. The result is a tension in the neck causes the voice to feel squeezed. So you might get that gravel sound or a squeaky sound. And the way to deal with that is to literally physically loosen the shoulders, loosen the neck, make a few sounds before you talk, or loosen the jaw. I do that a lot, where what I call is declench the jaw, so that the sound is more harmonious and easier to project. And this is particularly important if you're in a room, there are 15, 20 people that you're talking to, and there's no microphone. You want to be able to project so that everybody hears. And the other aspect about volume is that where you need to regulate the volume to the number of people you're talking to. Again, this is obviously if you're not using a microphone. If you're talking to a room of many people, you do need to increase the volume. And one other important fact is that when you're talking to a room of many people, as you increase the volume, you also need to talk a bit slower so that people further back or further from you can still hear clearly what you're saying. And an important point about that volume is the enunciation. And this goes to do with resonance and tightness of the voice. As I said earlier, your accent is unique to you and it is your trademark. But you can improve the quality of the voice by really enunciating clearly. That means really expressing all the sound syllables in the word that should be said. Obviously, from language to language, it varies. But in English, there are a few rules, and you say them clearly, enunciate them. And then, very much with the same as the tightness, it's warming up the voice. If you are going to be doing a speech in an environment like Toastmasters or at a conference, I present frequently at professional conferences as a health economist. I always spend 10 to 15 minutes before warming up my voice. It ties in with checking on the resonance, relaxing the shoulders, getting this tension out of the cheeks so that the voice is warmed up. And that stops me from starting and having, that squeak when people haven't been speaking for a while and when they're nervous. Now, I'm going to give you some examples. If anybody wants to try them, by all means, you're welcome. Now, this is a key sentence. It's adapted, obviously, for the professional environment, but there are loads of examples. And if you say to somebody, will you please prepare the report? My voice has been constant. I haven't changed anything. And you can interpret it any way you want. However, if I change and I put the emphasis in a different place, it has a different meaning. And as you can see, I've highlighted the word you. Will you please prepare the report? Now, the intention is not, if there were 10 people sitting there, the intention is that that particular person will prepare the report. It is clear and loud and should be understood. And it doesn't really mean the same thing as will you please prepare the report. And then if I said, will you please prepare the report? You can see that the emphasis has shifted to please. And that intimates that the person should have already done it, and they haven't. And you are saying, will you please prepare the report? It's a bit like when you hear parents saying to their children, will you please tidy your bedroom? And in fact, that sentence can be said multiple different ways, because you could also say, will you please tidy your bedroom? And it's interpreted differently. And the same goes for will you please prepare the report? Meaningless until you say, will you please prepare the report? Meaning or implying that it's the report you're waiting for. You don't care about the analysis and all the calculations in the background. You want the sodding report. Now, this is where voice is important in our professional lives. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to express any anger. You're putting the emphasis where you want the person to understand fully what you mean. And as you can see, they're the same sentences, but they have a different meaning. Are there any questions? Now, this is another example, seeing we didn't have questions yet. You might say to a colleague, you and I need to talk, and the colleague might want to answer, I have nothing to say to you. This might also be something between partners, who knows? But there are so many different ways that this can be said, and so many different ways that it can be interpreted. If I said, you and I need to talk, it means you and I. We're not interested about the talk or anybody else. But the person who answers, I have nothing to say to you, is really verbalizing their opinion. And if you change that and you said, you and I need to talk, the response is going to be different, because that person will say, I have nothing to say to you. These are the same sentences. The emphasis is in a different place, and they have different meanings. Now, this is this interpersonal communication that we use every day in our work lives and in our personal relationships. The power of the voice and putting the emphasis and all these other things that I've spoken about really enhances the message that we want the person or people to hear loud and clear. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Oh, this was another one which we played with in a workshop recently. When you say to somebody, how much does it cost? This is usually when somebody's given you the price and you go, like, how much does it cost you? You're showing what? How's that possible? And then you could also change it and say, how much does it cost? Which is a different meaning to how much does it cost? So just by making the voice, by using the voice in a different way, we have a completely different message. So there we go.
Awesome. Amazing. Questions, please. We're not going to leave until we have at least 2 questions.
Well, I have one question. So you mentioned about the emotions to convey that should go along with the message, and also that your voice needs to match, right? The message, your emotion, your tone of voice. How do you manage to control your tone of voice when, let's say, that you're upset about something, but you still need to deliver like a powerful or positive message? I mean, how do you manage to break that? Because I mean, you have to be in the emotion of the message. You want to convey a positive message, but yet you're upset about something else. I mean, how can you manage that?
That is actually a very good and important question. The way to do it is to not think about the emotions that you're feeling, but think about the emotions you want the recipient of your message to feel. You want them to feel confidence in you. You have to garner, you have to use confidence, because if you're not expressing confidence, they won't believe what you say. They won't get the message, not only believe, they won't get what you mean. The trick I use is I always think, what do I want my clients, because I use this a lot in my professional life. What do I want my clients to think? Do I want them to think that I already knew the answer to this? So that if they ask a question, I'll say, yes, da 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 da, and then I'll explain it. And I'll tend to talk quite quickly, because it shows, not too fast, obviously, because I don't want them to think I'm nervous, but just enough so that they realize she really knows what she's talking about. And they don't think that, it's a feeling. That's what I'm imposing on them. I'm imposing what I want them to feel. It sounds bizarre, but you think of your, I'll give you, because for me, it's my example is my clients. I want my clients to think she really knows our clinical study and she's reporting back with confidence. And the only way I can do that is by showing confidence, even if inside I'm thinking, God, what was he on about? And I have had that. But then I use a different tactic. And this is not so much about the voice, it's a tactic. If they ask me a question where I still need to think quickly about it, rather than saying, I'm not sure, because that's a weakness, and then I will feel undermined, not what they make me feel, I will feel it myself. I say, before I answer that question, and then I pause. Let me go back to, and then I go back to something that I know very easily and I can talk off the top of my head about it. And during that time, I buy myself very valuable seconds. And then when I get the answer, I can say, but now going back to your question. And again, I pause, because that's my way of saying, okay, now you need to listen to me. Going back to your question, you asked, and I repeat the question to make sure that I've understood it. Or I say, do you mean A or do you mean B? I normally just repeat the question and they'll say, in answer to that, it is A, B, C. And then I talk a little bit slower, because it's giving me time to think while I'm talking, but it's also the emotion that I want them to feel is she really knows what she's talking about. Does that answer the question? So to sum that up in a very simple way, what do you want the person you're talking to or the people to feel? And once you know what you want them to feel, you will have that right emotion in your voice. You have to push down your crumbs. What are they talking about? Or you may have had some bad news and you're feeling a little bit upset about something. Push that to the side, especially in our professional lives. By contrast, if you were talking to a group of friends, then you can show your vulnerability and your authenticity and your emotions, because that's powerful, but you wouldn't do that in business.
Makes 100% sense, Carina. Did you have anything else to share on the screen?
No, because I knew I only had the 25 minutes. I kept it all.
You could talk for hours, huh? I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm passionate about this topic because I think that, first of all, non-native English speakers, I find, are often quite embarrassed about their accents. They all start by saying, oh, I don't speak English very well. In fact, they do. Their grammar is often better than even native English speakers. But they need to overcome that and to say, right, this is my accent, this is who I am, this is part of my trademark. But as long as they compensate for it by speaking clearly and by using the voice, the pitch, the tone, all these different things, if they use that correctly, they will be perfectly understood.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I've lived in many different countries and I see that. Looks like somebody.
Can I ask something? Yeah, so Carina, very, very valuable and to the point and very practical what you said. To the last one, can we say that sometimes you fake it, you need to fake it till you make it, because I guess at the point it's more natural, like you are in a professional environment, but till you have it, till you learn it, till it is in your kind of unconscious, so it's very natural, you really press yourself to fake it. Is it the advice?
I wouldn't say fake, because that sounds insincere or non-authentic. I would say focus on the voice, so that you're using your voice to create the message or to support the message that you want to give people. You know, if somebody says to you, just in day-to-day life, if somebody says, how are you? And you're feeling rubbish, you'll say, I'm okay. Or not too good. The voice is saying it. I don't even need to hear the words. But if I said to you, if you said to me, how are you? And I said, I'm wonderful. I feel great. So to go back to that, it's not about faking. It's about interpreting or understanding what you want your audience to feel, what you want them to interpret that you're saying.
Thank you very much.
So we're trying to direct an emotional impact on the audience to get like a connection between us and the audience.
Yeah,
right?
it is, because how do we connect with the people we speak?
So I'm feeling bad. How should I reply? Somebody is asking me, how are you?
Yes.
I'm feeling bad.
If you are feeling bad and you want the person to know you're feeling bad, you're not going to say, oh, I'm feeling bad, because that just doesn't go. You're going to say, I'm not great. You're going to express it. But if you want them to know, if you don't want them to know, then you're going to say, I'm okay.
Okay, thank you. That was it.
You know, it depends on whether it's in your personal professional life and how well you know somebody. If you don't know somebody well, you're really not going to burden them with how you're feeling.
Thank you very, very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much, Carina, for sharing your knowledge.